Hello and welcome. I'm very glad that I'm speaking today with Professor Evamarie Hey-Hawkins. What does it mean to you to receive the Karl-Ziegler-Preis?
Well, a lot. But to be honest, I'm really glad, and of course I'm very honored to receive the Karl-Ziegler-Preis. But I also feel that my work and my group's contributions to science over the past, 30 to 35 years already, are being acknowledged by honoring me with the Karl-Ziegler-Preis. So I'm very happy.
And can you say a bit about your research, please?
Our research has always been focused on phosphorus. So even in my diploma thesis, I already worked with phosphorus, and I've worked with this element ever since. So, for example, we are interested in phosphine ligands. We make functionalized phosphine ligands that we can tune to facilitate specific properties, donor acceptor properties, for example, at the phosphorus atom. We can switch them by oxidizing or reducing a moiety in the backbone. So phosphorus and phosphine ligands is one of the main topics. But we are also working on boron compounds, and here specifically on a group called carboranes. So carboranes are icosahedral molecules that consist of boron and carbon, 2 carbon atoms and 10 boron atoms. And these are spherical molecules. And so we've used them as backbones, for example, in ligands, and they are really electron poor. And so you can imagine that, of course, having them as a backbone really modifies the properties of a donor atom. But the spherical shape and the electronic properties and the hydrophobicity of these clusters is also really good in the biomedical and biochemical area. And so we are using them as replacements, for example, of phenyl rings in drugs, to make these drugs metabolically more stable, to make them more hydrophobic, to pass through membranes, for example, much easier. And of course, they are very easy to modify. So you have 12 corners, and you can virtually use this spherical molecule to modify it three-dimensionally. And so this is more or less the main part of our research. Of course, transition metals always play a very important role as well.
And is there anything you're especially excited about of your projects?
That we do at the moment?
Yeah.
Well, all of them, of course, all of them. There isn't really a specific one, but at the moment I have a group that is still working, even under these very difficult conditions. And what we do at the moment, maybe just a few brief examples, we are designing and then, of course, making ligands that have different binding pockets. So one, of course, is composed of phosphorus and other donor atoms, and the other is other donor atoms. And we can use them to coordinate 2 different metals, to do heterobimetallic tandem catalysis, for example. So this is one of our exciting areas, where we are also looking at the hydrogenation of carbon dioxide to formic acid. Another example, of course, is the carboranes, where we are looking at drugs, typically drugs that have been introduced to the market, but then have been taken off the market, in some cases because they have failed the requirements, for example, metabolic stability. And then we are trying to modify them to improve the metabolic stability, for example, and also, of course, the selectivity. And so on, the carborane chemistry is also one of the thriving areas, and we have a subgroup that is called bioboron subgroup, where this kind of work is being conducted. And of course, in phosphorus, I've always been fond of phosphorus a lot, and so the more the merrier. And making molecules that have many phosphorus atoms, so oligophosphines, has always been part of our research, at least in the past 20 years, or maybe even more. And so we make these molecules, oligophosphines, either as neutral molecules or as anionic molecules, and then we can use them as ligands for metals, specifically transition metals. And of course, these are typically precursors. We then decompose them. Sometimes this is really a shame because the molecules are really pretty. And just looking at the phosphorus NMR spectra is amazing, because when you have so many phosphorus atoms and they all couple, it's just beautiful. And so thermalizing these molecules sometimes really breaks your heart, but if you can make a very nice compound, for example, a metal phosphide, using these compounds as precursors, then it's worth it. So these are only a few of the projects that we are working on at the moment, but as I said, I mean, I'm really excited about all of them.
Yeah, that sounds like that. And is there anything you're fascinated, or can you say what you're fascinated about chemistry in general?
Well, when you think about it, chemistry and science is very important. Without chemistry, life would not be as we know it, as simple as that. And so what always fascinated me was to be able to solve problems, to find solutions to problems using chemistry, using chemical knowledge. And what I'm really fascinated about is that as a chemist and having the chemical knowledge, I can design a specific molecule or compound on paper and then find ways of making it. And then, of course, using it, either just for basic research, that is also perfectly fine, but maybe also for applications in medicine or in the material science. And so the creativity that you can use all the time by creating something, by creating new molecules, not only on paper, but then also in reality, this is what has always fascinated me about chemistry specifically.
Mm-hmm. And if you had unlimited funds, what would you do in chemistry?
Unlimited funds. Unlimited funds. Of course, this is never going to happen, but
probably not.
Just imagine if I really had unlimited funds. Well, if you look at my CV or my scientific life up to now, you probably realize that I've been involved in many networks, and I've always collaborated with many, many groups worldwide. I had many people in my group from deprived areas who left my group, went back to their home countries to start their own academic career, and they don't have an easy life, to put it like this. So if I had unlimited funds, I would use them to really help them to improve on their resources, on their equipment, to enable them to do research at a level that I would think it should be done at. Because at the moment some of them are really struggling, but they are doing the best they can. And I think it's really important, especially in these areas, because these people are the multipliers, they're the key people. They are training the scientists of tomorrow. They are training the people who are going to solve the problems that we are facing right now and that we are going to face in future. And they can only really do this if they also have the means. And so if I had unlimited funds, I would probably spend most of it on these people, my friends, colleagues, and former students.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. And I've seen that you've worked at a lot of different universities, so Australia, China, France, Germany, New Zealand, Turkey, the UK. Can you say what was particularly important about these experiences to you?
Well, I enjoyed all of these days. I like traveling, and I'm really suffering at the moment, not being able to. But in all of these places, what I experienced was great hospitality, and what we always shared was the love for science and for chemistry. Really pushing the frontiers of science backwards. So this is what I found in all of these places. But looking at, for example, Germany and comparing them to, for example, Australia or other countries, what I noticed is that I'm really privileged here. I'm a professor, I have my own labs, I have my own staff, I have my own equipment. So I have NMR machines, I have diffractometer. So if I want samples to be run now, then I say, please go run, and people will do this. In most places, funding is maybe not as limitless. Well, it's limited here as well, but still, some areas, at least in Germany, science is still funded. And so a lot of equipment is in pools, is in service stations, and so you have to register. You have to wait until it's your turn. And so I feel that I'm really privileged to be able to just use equipment that I have whenever I want to have it and to use it. And another example is the funding scheme. So I think in Germany, what we have with the DFG, with the German Research Foundation, is just amazing. If you have a good idea, a proposal, basic research, applied research, it doesn't matter. As long as it's good, DFG will fund it. And not only once a year, you can submit proposals all the time. And then you can be sure that there will be experts looking at a proposal, and if it's good, it will get funded. So everyone can do this. Everyone who has the right to submit a proposal can do this. In other countries, once a year, you can only have 1 or 2 proposals that you are leading and not more. So here, as many as you like, as many as you can handle. It's not only the DFG. If I want to do applied research, of course, I have many institutions that will fund this. There's also the European Union, for example. And so in Germany, if you have an idea and you want to get something funded, there is an institution for that, definitely. And this is one of the main differences to other countries. Continuing with funding, but on a different level, mobility. In my academic life, mobility was always important. To collaborate with many people worldwide was always my dream, and I've made that true. And so I really love that. And of course, that needs funding. Without the DAAD, without the Humboldt Foundation and other organizations that we have in Germany that provide this funding, that would not have been possible. And so there are many of my collaborators who have received funding from these organizations. And so when they talk about Germany and the DAAD or Humboldt, then of course their eyes light up and they are really excited about having been offered this opportunity. And this is one of the things that you will not find in other countries. There are many, many more differences, but as I said, what we all share is the love about science and this fascination about science and the idea to contribute to a better science and of course then overall to a better world, of course.
Yeah, and sometimes we forget this. You said the love of science, and how would you say, what would be a good idea how to teach the general public a bit more, or bring over the spirit of how the fascination of chemistry to them?
I think we already started. I think about 20 years ago, this was not really important because funding was there and we just took it for granted. But now I think, especially in the past 20 years, we have realized that because we are being paid by taxpayers' money, that we have to give something back. Of course, I always give something back by training the next generation of scientists. The people that I train, they can become teachers, they can become persons who work in industry, they can do virtually anything that is related to science, even though they've been trained in chemistry, because training always comprises mathematics and physics as well. So they are around us, and this is one of the things that I give back to the community, to science. And I think they're all examples, and as long as they advertise about their training and about what they are doing, then we already have multipliers. Of course, what we are also trying to do is make people aware that chemistry is everywhere, that without chemistry, what we have around us would simply not be there. And without the chemical industry in Germany, a lot of the products that people are using every day would simply not be there. And so I think this is one of the things that have also improved in the past 10, 15 years, that we are trying to make the public aware that science is solving problems. Of course, to be fair, we are also causing problems, microplastics, but there are solutions. And I think if we can sort of convince the general public that funding science and investing in science and investing in people will, in the long run, be able to solve problems, the big problems that we are facing now and that will we be facing in future. So I think that is one of the basic things to make the public aware how important science is.
Then thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for the nice conversation.
Thank you for the interview. It was a pleasure. Thank you.